17 years. That's how long the whole world has been wondering what really happened to Madeleine Mccann on that night of May 3rd, 2007 in Portugal. We've already explored this case here on the channel, analyzing every detail, every theory, every possibility. But what happened last week could change everything we know about this mystery. For the first time in almost 2 decades, we have concrete evidence that could finally reveal the truth behind one of the most famous disappearances in history. Imagine discovering that hidden in an abandoned factory in the German countryside was a veritable archive of horrors. Children's swimsuits, chemicals to cause fainting, detailed conversations about child abductions, and confessions that make your blood run cold. This is not a horror movie script. This is the reality that investigators have just discovered, and it could be the key to solving the Madeleine Mccann case once and for all. If you are not yet part of our community of people seeking answers to the world's greatest mysteries, this is the perfect time to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications, because the next few weeks promise to be decisive in this case. For those who have followed the case for years, you will know that the disappearance of Madeleine Mccann in 2007 remains one of the most intriguing enigmas in modern criminology. The 3-year-old girl disappeared from the apartment where she was vacationing with her parents and twin brothers in Praia da Luz, Portugal, while Kate and Jerry Mccann were having dinner with friends at a restaurant just 50 meters away. The couple had established a system of checking in, where adults would take turns checking on the children sleeping in the apartment every 15 to 20 minutes. It was during one of these checks that Kate Mccann discovered that Madeleine had disappeared without a trace. What followed was one of the largest search operations in recent history. Thousands of people mobilized, international media covered every development, and Madeleine's parents became world-renowned faces in their tireless search for their daughter. Posters featuring the girl's face and her distinctive mark on her right eye were plastered all over the world. But as the years passed without any concrete answers, conspiracy theories began to emerge, and even the parents themselves became suspects at times. Over the course of nearly 2 decades, the case has generated an impressive number of false leads and dubious claims. Especially in recent years, with the rise of social media, dozens of young, blonde-haired, light-eyed women have begun claiming to be Madeleine Mccann. On TikTok, for example, you can find hundreds of videos of girls toying with this possibility, some with truly striking physical resemblances to projections of what Madeleine would look like today. The comments on these videos are filled with genuinely convinced people asking for DNA tests and questioning why the police don't investigate each and every one of these claims. What many people don't realize is how many times investigators have gone through this process. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of people have contacted authorities claiming to be Madeleine or to know her whereabouts. Every serious claim has been investigated. Every physical resemblance has been analyzed, but none has ever been proven true. The most famous recent case was that of Julia Wendler, a young Polish woman who gained worldwide attention in 2023 when she claimed to be Madeleine. Her claim was so well received that she underwent DNA testing, but the results confirmed that she had no connection to the Mccann family. All this media hype, while understandable given the public interest in the case, ended up diverting attention from the real work of the investigators. While social media was filled with conspiracy theories and false allegations, the detectives continued to follow real leads, analyze concrete evidence, and build a solid case against the person who may be truly responsible for Madeleine's disappearance. It was in 2020 that German authorities officially announced Christian Bruckner as the prime suspect in the case. Bruckner, a 47-year-old German, had already been serving a sentence since 2019 in a German prison for raping a 72-year-old American woman in Portugal in 2050. His 7-year prison sentence was scheduled to end in September 2024, creating a crucial time pressure for investigators. Bruckner's criminal history is extensive and disturbing, beginning in 1993 with sexual crimes against children. At the age of 17, he was caught molesting a 6-year-old girl in a park. This was just the beginning of a criminal career that would span decades, always targeting vulnerable victims, especially children. In 2017, Bruckner was extradited from Portugal to Germany, where he served 15 months in prison for child molestation. What is particularly disturbing is how the justice system allowed him to serve so little time for such serious crimes. This leniency may have cost him dearly, because as soon as he was released from prison, he committed the crime for which he is currently imprisoned: the rape of the elderly American woman. In February 2024, Bruckner faced a new trial in Germany for 3 additional rapes and 2 cases of child sexual abuse, crimes allegedly committed between 24 and 27. The victims included an elderly woman, a 14-year-old girl, and a 20-year-old girl. According to court reports, all of them were tied up, whipped, and subjected to violent sexual abuse. He was also accused of exposing himself to 2 girls aged 10 and 11, demonstrating a consistent pattern of predatory behavior. In addition to the sex crimes, Bruckner also has convictions for drug trafficking, showing his involvement in a variety of criminal activities.
This criminal history painted the picture of an extremely dangerous man, but there was still no direct evidence linking him to the disappearance of Madeleine Mccann. The first significant clue came from a former cellmate who told authorities that Bruckner had confessed to kidnapping a girl while in Algarve, Portugal. According to this testimony, Bruckner had said that he had taken this little girl from her apartment on vacation. Although this information was passed on to the German Court of Justice, it was not sufficient for a conviction, as it was based solely on the word of an inmate with no physical evidence to corroborate the claim. Investigators were also able to geographically position Bruckner in the region where Madeleine disappeared. Records showed that he was living in Portugal at the time of her disappearance, specifically in the Algarve area, a few kilometers from Praia da Luz. Then came the discovery that could change everything. Last week, the Daily Star newspaper revealed explosive details about evidence found by German police at a disused factory that Bruckner bought in rural Germany in 2008, exactly 1 year after Madeleine disappeared. The timing of the purchase alone is extremely suspicious, but what was found inside the property is even more shocking. The evidence was presented in an investigative documentary that caused an international stir. The details revealed are so disturbing that it is hard to believe that all of this was hidden for so many years, right under the noses of the authorities. The most incriminating item was a hard drive containing extensive conversations between Bruckner and other pedophiles via encrypted messaging apps. In these conversations, dating mostly from 2010, Bruckner expressed detailed fantasies about kidnapping children and holding them captive for days. His messages were so extreme and disturbing that even other criminals on the network stopped communicating with him, considering his ideas too radical even by their standards. In one of the most shocking conversations, Bruckner describes in great detail how he used the chemical ether to kidnap a mother and her blonde daughter outside a preschool. He details how he waited in the car for the mother to pick up the child, how he used the chemical to knock them both out, and how he got them into his vehicle. The description is so graphic and detailed that investigators believe it is not fantasy, but an actual account of a crime committed. When she got to the car with her little girl in her arms and opened the back door, I was already behind them holding a rag soaked in ether, Bruckner wrote in one of the messages. I pushed it hard against the woman's face. At first she resisted, but I held her steady. The little girl sat in the car and watched me with wide, horrified eyes. When it was all over and the two bodies were hidden in the darkness, I got in my van, loaded up my prey, and drove away. The account continues with even more disturbing details about what happened next. I carried them both out of the car, closed the doors, took them into the house, and thought to myself, "Welcome to paradise." That specific language, referring to the crime scene as paradise, appears repeatedly in their online conversations. Another story bears eerie similarities to the Madeleine case. Bruckner describes a little girl with long blonde hair in braids that swings cheekily back and forth, referring to her by the name Annelle and saying she was 4 years old. I feel like I'm in heaven right now, again using the same characteristic language. What makes these descriptions particularly eerie is the specificity of the physical details. Always blonde girls, always very young, always described in a way that suggests proximity and prolonged observation. Madeleine Mccann was blonde, 3 years old at the time of her disappearance, and her distinctive physical characteristics were widely reported in the media. In online conversations, Bruckner also displayed a disturbing confidence in his ability to avoid consequences.
He commented that capturing children, quote, wouldn't make a difference because he would always destroy the evidence afterwards, end quote. This calculating mindset suggests someone who had carefully planned his actions and considered how to avoid detection. But the online chatter was only part of the horror uncovered at the factory. The physical inventory of the items found reads like a catalog of nightmares. Investigators seized 75 children's swimsuits, most in small sizes suitable for children between the ages of 3 and 8. The specific quantity and focus on swimsuits suggests meticulous preparation for crimes against children. Masks of various types were also found, possibly used to conceal identity or terrorize victims. Illegal weapons were hidden in various locations on the property, along with chemicals capable of causing unconsciousness, including ether, the same substance Bruckner described using in his online conversations. The discovery of toys and several small bicycles suggests the facility may have been used to lure or entertain children prior to the abuse. Investigators believe the factory functioned as a sort of operations center for crimes against minors, a secluded location where Bruckner could keep victims without risk of discovery. Particularly shocking was the discovery of an underground hiding place furnished with a sofa, coffee table, and other furniture, suggesting the space was designed for prolonged confinement. Authorities also found what appeared to be a shallow grave, raising the terrifying possibility that some victims may have been killed and buried there. Disturbing writings were found on the factory walls, including the phrase, "My girlfriend lied to me, cheated on me, and taught me to hate." This message may provide insight into Bruckner's mental state and possible motivations for his crimes. The discovery at the factory was not the first time Bruckner's property had yielded evidence of crimes against children. In 2016, searches of other property he owned turned up around 8,000 files of images and videos of child abuse, as well as several electronic devices that had been deliberately buried to avoid detection. Among this earliest evidence was a GPS device that revealed detailed movements of Bruckner around the Algarve region in the years following Madeleine's disappearance. The data showed that he regularly frequented areas near Praia da Luz, even after the case gained international attention and the area was under intense police surveillance. A photograph of Bruckner naked was also found at the Arad Dam, located 35 miles from where Madeleine was staying with her family. The photo was taken a few months after the disappearance, suggesting that he continued to frequent the area even after the crime. Among the most recently recovered electronic devices, 391 photographs and 68 videos of child pornography were found, including material showing Bruckner himself abusing the 5-year-old daughter of one of his former girlfriends in a park. This evidence not only confirms his direct involvement in child abuse, but also shows his willingness to document his crimes. Bruckner's ex-girlfriend, whose name is spelled incorrectly and will not be reproduced here for privacy reasons, provided investigators with crucial information about his behavior. She said she met Bruckner when he worked at a kiosk, where he impressed her with superficial charm, telling her that a pretty girl shouldn't have to pay anything for the items she wanted to buy. Initially, the relationship seemed normal, and she even considered marrying him. But everything changed when she discovered pedophilia and child abuse material on his cell phone. The images were mainly of little blonde girls, a pattern that would be repeated in all the evidence later uncovered by investigators. When she confronted Bruckner about the illegal material, she was brutally attacked. He punched her so hard that she was knocked unconscious for 10 minutes. Both she and her mother reported the assault to the police, prompting a search of her apartment. Bruckner then fled to Portugal to avoid arrest, settling in the very region where Madeleine Mccann would disappear months later. The ex-girlfriend also vividly remembers a party at Bruckner's apartment in 2014, when the Madeleine case came up naturally in conversation among the guests. While everyone discussed theories and speculations about the disappearance, Bruckner remained remarkably silent, a reaction she found strange at the time. When later questioned about his silence, Bruckner made a statement that now seems extremely incriminating. "I know about Madeleine. I lived in the area at the time. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm not a stupid guy. I'm a businessman." This statement not only confirms that he was in the area during the disappearance, but also suggests specific knowledge about the case that goes beyond what has been publicly disclosed. Another significant incident occurred in 2008 when Bruckner attended a festival in Spain and was involved in a car accident. A witness to the incident told authorities that Bruckner confessed to killing Madeleine, specifically stating that she did not scream during the crime. Although this testimony is considered questionable by investigators due to the circumstances, it adds another piece to the growing puzzle of circumstantial evidence. What makes all this evidence even more urgent is Bruckner's current legal situation. His 7-year sentence for rape is set to end in September 2024, meaning that without any new charges, he will be released soon. German investigators are lobbying their British counterparts to speed up the process, but building a solid case takes time, especially when it comes to evidence accumulated over 17 years. UK police are responsible for the investigation because Madeleine was a British citizen and her parents are British, although the crime took place in Portugal and the suspect is being held in Germany. This complex international jurisdiction has created significant bureaucratic challenges, but it has also allowed unprecedented cooperation between the police forces of the 3 countries. Criminal investigation experts who have reviewed the new evidence have commented that while extremely suspicious and indicative of guilt, it is largely circumstantial. It clearly establishes that Bruckner had the motivation, means, and opportunity to commit the crime, but does not directly connect him to the specific disappearance of Madeleine Mccann. The pattern of behavior is undeniably consistent with the crime. A history of child abuse, geographic presence at the correct time and place, possession of equipment used for kidnapping and abuse, and multiple reported confessions. But criminal justice demands a higher standard of evidence than suspicious coincidences. One of the most tragic conclusions to emerge from the investigation is the consensus among prosecutors that Madeleine McCann did not survive her abduction. With 95% certainty, they believe she was killed shortly after being taken from the apartment. This conclusion is based not only on Bruckner's pattern of behavior, but also on statistical analysis of similar cases and the complete absence of any sign of life from Madeleine in 17 years. This determination, while devastating to any hope that Madeleine is still alive, may actually help the investigation by focusing efforts on evidence of homicide rather than continued abduction. It also means there is no time limit on prosecuting Bruckner, since homicide does not have a statute of limitations in most jurisdictions. The time pressure to gather sufficient evidence before Bruckner's release has created an unprecedented sense of urgency in the investigation. If he is released without further charges, it will be much more difficult to monitor him, and he could potentially commit new crimes. Given his extensive history of child abuse and the evidence of meticulous planning, investigators consider his release to be an unacceptable risk to public safety. The recent discoveries have also raised disturbing questions about how many other victims Bruckner may have had over the years. If the abandoned factory did indeed function as a hub for crimes against children, it's possible that several families lost their children to this predator without ever knowing what happened to them. Investigators are now working to connect Bruckner to other unsolved missing child cases in the area, especially those involving young blonde girls. This approach could not only provide justice for other families, but also establish a pattern of behavior that would strengthen his case against him. The psychological impact of these revelations on the McCann family cannot be underestimated. After 17 years of agonizing uncertainty, they may be finally close to getting answers, even if those answers confirm their worst fears. Kate and Jerry McCann have maintained remarkable hope and determination throughout these years, never stopping their search for their daughter even when faced with public suspicion and media scrutiny. The coming weeks and months will be crucial in determining whether the evidence gathered is sufficient to secure a conviction. Investigators continue to work to find that final piece of the puzzle that will definitively connect Bruckner to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Meanwhile, the case continues to capture global attention, not only for its tragic nature, but for what it represents about our collective ability to seek justice even decades after a crime. Madeleine McCann's disappearance has touched people around the world because it represents every parent's most primal fear, the loss of a child to an unknown predator.
If the evidence proves sufficient, and Christian Bruckner is finally convicted of Madeleine McCann's disappearance, it will not only bring closure to one of the longest-running criminal investigations in modern history, but it will also send a powerful message that no crime, no matter how well planned or how long ago it was committed, is beyond the reach of justice. Modern forensic technology, international cooperation between police forces, and the tireless persistence of investigators may finally be converging to solve a mystery that has haunted the world for nearly 2 decades. For Kate and Jerry McCann, and for everyone else touched by Madeleine's story, these next few weeks may finally bring the answers they have sought for so long. The Madeleine McCann case has always been more than just a criminal investigation. It has become a symbol of the vulnerability of children and the importance of never giving up in the search for the truth. If this new evidence ultimately leads to a conviction, it will also serve as a reminder that justice, while sometimes slow in coming, can prevail even against the most heinous crimes. Whether you've followed this case over the years or are just learning about these developments for the first time, be sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with all the updates as they happen.
Leave a like if you found this information useful, and comment with your theories about the case or suggestions for other mysteries you'd like to see analyzed here. Cases like this show how important it is to keep the search for the truth alive, no matter how long it takes to find it.